Welcome. You are tuned in to Municipal Focus. This is a special Candidates 2020 local conversation, as we will do our best to speak with many of the folks who are running for office, whether it's in Whitman or in Hanson. As many folks know, the your normal elections, by the time you're seeing this, they should have been taking place in mid-May. Unfortunately, we are all living with COVID-19, and because of the pandemic, a lot of things have been pushed off, and we're learning this new normal as to social distancing. But there will be an election, and the thought is to try to get as many conversations going with the folks who are going to be on the ballot, so you get to know who they are. Joining us today is Mr. Steve Bois. Steve is a member of the Whitman Hanson Regional School Committee. Welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us, Steve.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate being here. Hello to everyone. Good to hopefully be seeing you at some point soon, particularly for elections. I know there's going to be a lot to do with also people mailing in. So very excited to get underway with the town meeting and town election season, so to speak.
For those who might be new to town government or don't know who you are directly, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
I don't mind at all. So I was born in Brockton, one of four kids, Donald and Marion Bois, who settled in Whitman in 1956. I own the house that my parents had owned. They are both deceased. My three sisters, two of them have two boys, and the other one has three girls. And I have a great nephew plus a second great nephew on the way. Growing up in Whitman, I went to the Whitman schools, what's now the Conley School. Miss Conley was alive at the time. It was called the Forest Street School. We had two middle schools. I went to Whitman Middle, which was West Middle, and I went to Whitman Hanson, the previous building that we had that was built in 1960. I've always had an interest in volunteering, learned it from very early on. Way back, we had people, or I should say students in various grades that weren't part of inclusion, and I would get to go and sit with those students and work with them on math and so forth. And it could be those that might have Down syndrome or other learning disabilities, and it was really inspired me to move on and do things. And I've been a volunteer in Whitman. I tell people I'm entering my sixth decade in my volunteer services. I've been on the Whitman Town Park, been the chair, vice chair, member of the Whitman Finance Committee. After I lost my mom in 2013, I went to the Mass Republican State Convention in 2014, got to meet Charlie Baker and was very inspired by him as a candidate and decided to throw my name in for running for office for the first time for the Whitman Hanson Regional School Committee. There was one seat open and one incumbent running, and I was very fortunate, and thanks to the voters and the citizens in Whitman for their support, and they supported me in 2017, and I'd ask for their support again this coming June.
So it's easy to, it's safe to say that you are looking for a third term, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Talk to me about why you're deciding to seek a third term. I know it's never a given because some folks they'll do their time and decide, okay, I've done a couple of terms and I'm going to walk away. Talk to me about being motivated for a third term.
Sure, Kevin. I just enjoy being involved in some level, and it doesn't make a difference to me what it is. When I came back after 2014, and I just realized that this was an open seat. There wasn't really any room on the finance committee. I had left that for my work and so forth. And I had traveled the country. I worked for the JFK Library, but the Office of Presidential Libraries really hired me on to go to all the presidential libraries. And I still do that job today, although the travel obviously is much more limited. It's a great sort of tandem thing. I've chaired other committees. I'm president of the Coburg Cemetery Association. I've been a member for a few years now. I mentioned the being on the Friends of the Whitman Town Park. And I also was on the cable board after one of the original members in the original charter for Whitman Hanson Cable Association passed, Bob Brown. I was voted into his seat and always enjoyed serving. Why for the Whitman Hanson Regional School Committee? You know, I always feel that the work is never done. You really want to still move forward and progress as best as you can. And I like those challenges and figuring out those little oddities here and there. What can we do there? What can we do here? You know, when you hear that, like things as simple as, geez, if we own a front end loader, you know, to take care of some work around the schools, we don't have to bother one, either DPW or Public Works, and two, we don't have to rent our own equipment. You know, and those were the common sense things that harken back to the decade I spent on the Finance Committee. You just find the best way to do things. And it's really working with people. I mean, it's whether they're young adults, whether they're children, whether they're older adults, the spectrum is there. And it's just an excellent opportunity.
Know that you are part of a collective, any committee. It's not just something that one person does, but I feel that there are ways to achieve things as a member of a collective, like a committee or a board. What would you say are some of the achievements or initiatives that you've been able to lead? You have been able to lead during your prior term, or the term that you're currently serving out right now.
Sure. Well, one of them is being on I was on both the North River Collaborative and the Pilgrim Area Collaborative, and the importance here there are students that can't function in a regular classroom setting. And these collaboratives came together. There's several of them. Right now, Superintendent represents us on the North River Collaborative. We're joining the South Shore Area Collaborative, which I will hopefully represent in the upcoming year and going forward. But one of the things I find with the Plymouth Area Collaborative is we're all elected school committee people from our surrounding towns, but we're appointed by our own committees, and we're there doing the work that is helping these young people be able to get exact equity in what their education should be. It is so fulfilling. Yes, there's a lot of things right on the committee. You know, sometimes I've led with my voice what we need to hear and do. And it might not be a particular subject or anything. I mean, we've gone through a few situations where, in fact, we're still trying to finalize a budget, but it isn't so much that, it's hearing and knowing that we can involve the town, that we can see the leadership all come together, including us, and being a part of that leadership is you know, it makes it that much more challenging but rewarding at the same time, because we're getting a lot, I feel, a lot accomplished. We're going in the right direction. You can veer off here and there, but you always seem to find the right direction.
Okay. I think the school budget assessments to the towns, the funding method, seems to be the major issue. What is your understanding of this particular situation?
So, you know, I know people would go back and say this is from 2007. I was on the finance committee as the chair, always went to the school committee meetings, always heard that this was a difficult formula, so on and so forth, but had always understood what was in that original regional agreement as the 60-40 split. We got the enrollment numbers October 1 and so forth, and always went forward with that. As this had evolved and relooking before Dr. Whitner left as superintendent, relooking at redoing the regional agreement or updating it at least, I think that's when this all came to a head. Well, you got to understand on both sides, yeah, there would be a lot of frustration. One, why wasn't it recognized? But two, how can we fulfill this going forward? We need, once again, Kevin, is that right direction. And I think that including that with the current RAAC committee that, you know, is made up of members of both towns, both town school members, superintendent, town administrators, selectmen, FinCom members, they're going to come out with the right choice. You know, if it's a trade-off of something, that's what it is. That's what it's always been. It's a trade-off of something. Now, I can appreciate the fact that there is equity in saying, you know, if you've got a nicer home, you've got a better life. You know, I'm a single individual here. If something happens to me, you know, I got to make sure I'm covered for whatever circumstances those might be. And when my mom was alive, you know, I carried extra life insurance in case anything did happen with me. But you having those, I kind of was thinking of it, you know, the different tax brackets. If someone's in a 28% tax bracket or a 25% or an 18%, you know, they're being taxed on what they're almost like their success and in a sense. And I think it's fair and equitable what that formula does bring, but I know we gotta find the right way to get there. And it is challenging on both sides. And I know it's brought out a lot of frustrations. And, you know, certainly it's nothing frustrating that's pointed at anyone. It's just helping that ability to move to the next step.
We're dealing, as I opened our segment by talking about COVID-19. We are living a new normal. COVID-19 has number of domino effects, and one of those domino effects are our finances, whether individual finances or how we operate as a municipality, how we're operating, how the Commonwealth itself is able to operate. What are your concerns heading into town meeting in regards to the fiscal 2021 budget and how COVID-19 has had an impact moving forward?
Well, if I sort of look back at, it's not only the Chapter 70 funding that I've heard, I don't know what might come of it. That there was some talk of it being cut back 20%. That's a significant thing. If I look in, and hopefully that isn't the case. I know state representatives are working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, there is additional monies to help back us up in certain areas. Hopefully, and hopefully this all happens. You know, we've often put a lot into special ed reimbursement and our regional transportation reimbursement. Regional transportation just never hit the 100% mark. And we also try to get more per pupil money. We were successful, I think, the last few years in that going up higher. Also looking at it, because I know the municipality side, people haven't been buying new automobiles. You know, how many dealer lots of cars sitting there and they're just not purchasing? Are there renovations or home improvements going on, or, you know, things that would bring in new growth? Yeah, maybe there's some. But those are all challenges. If you were to put it into a big pot, Kevin, those are huge challenges. They all add up, and it presents a very scary scenario. One I know we've never seen. And, you know, I was always one when I chaired the finance committee, is where are we with that levy limit? You know, I remember getting up saying, hey, we're within $75 or something at one meeting. And, you know, it's true. If we have an ability for a taxation of going up to X number of dollars, that's going to go to useful things, very useful things. And this is one of those times that's huge.
You know, digressing back to the previous question in regards to the assessment, and I feel that there's a lot of discussions going on. I feel as though that there are town officials on both sides who, you know, are not happy with what's going on and sharing a school district. I guess I would ask you, have you heard anything in regards to any movements towards deregionalizing? And what are your thoughts? What are your concerns about such a movement?
I'm concerned, you know, it takes away from those that were the young people that we're supposed to be teaching, the young people that we're supposed to be setting an example for. Yeah, I've heard it, but I don't think anyone has said anything directly to me or at any of our school committee meetings. I'm obviously on Zoom right now, and it's been that way since mid-March. But I don't, I see the message of more like we have to, we voted this as our recommendation, we ask that you support it, blah, blah, blah. It's almost like a reverse of us asking them to support what we put forward. There's just that, not that people aren't talking about it, but I don't know if I couldn't put a percentage on it, like how many people really want to deregionalize. And there's a long time frame to that. There's a long time frame. There's a lot of shifting around. There's obviously going to have to be additional school committees if that's how it's passed out and so forth. I think Whitman and Hanson each had one before '93 for K. If it wasn't pre-K, it was K through 8. So then it's almost like compartmentalizing things. In a time, I know we had talked about regionalization with enhanced 911 or dispatches or this or that. And then with other parts of the community, I think in a shift another way. I don't think it's worth the gamble. It could be a little bit more, harder on a district to split and then the two towns. I know Pembroke was successful and still are. I don't know their whole story when they left Silver Lake, but I think the people though are going to make the right decision. And if they wanted to deregionalize and there's a majority there, and they're going to make it work.
So just to be clear,
Yeah.
I would ask you, are you for or against deregionalizing? And could the town of Whitman afford such a move?
I'm pretty sure we could afford it. I'll answer that first. And I am against deregionalizing. I mean, I often think if, we need a new middle school. Sometimes if you wanted to think about it, we still have the old Park Ave school, which, if that had to be replaced as well and used in some sort of educational way, which that land is deeded for, we'd have to look at those approaches. And obviously it's in the hands of the residents and the citizens of both towns, but I would not be for deregionalizing.
Okay. So besides yourself, there are multiple candidates running for school committee this year. What do you feel are some of the other issues that are concerning voters in the district?
I know there's been a lot about transparency and openness. I know we've been much better with communication, and I hope that continues for folks. I certainly want to be able to continue to do my part in speaking for the people and students and everyone that's involved, because no one's cut out of this pie. It's important that they all stay within it. They're not a slice on the outside and, oh, well, there goes schools again, quote unquote. And I don't believe that. I know we have a great relationship. I do also personally and professionally with many of the people either working for the town, elected to town positions, or just residents of the town. And I can say in full confidence, that we always will do the right thing. We'll always find the right path. And I think that that's the important thing.
Okay. If you're reelected, what would you like to accomplish, or what would you like to see the board tackle if you are a member of that committee?
So if we are moving forward with a new middle school and knowing in Whitman what we have available with spacing and so forth, if the luxury affords itself, I mean, I mentioned that old Park Ave school site, if that could ever be reutilized or whatever, being on two different packs. I'm sorry, not packs. The Pilgrim Area Collaborative and the South Shore Area Collaborative coming up. I really want to see if we can still integrate these children who are learning in various settings, giving them the ability to have more inclusiveness in our buildings, in our schools. Yes, we turned back to McQuon School a year and a half ago, and things like that. But that should not affect the fact that we're open and inviting, and I love that opportunity to embrace. These children get transported, and many times they're transported in so many different directions and such distances. The Pilgrim Area Collaborative, it sounds like we're very far out from that. Stoughton is a member town, so obviously they got further transportation needs, but not everyone in the collaborative who's a member has all their folks coming in. It could be from outside communities as well. Whatever those children need. I've seen it at the Duval School. I've seen it at, other school settings that they exist in our schools, and that's where they really should be. I find, yeah, there's going to be one main building probably which is a Pilgrim Academy for the Plymouth Area Collaborative, but I think that's a great benefit. We've done the so-called experience with the pre-K and kindergarten, pre-K up to the high school. Let's expand upon that. I love seeing students across the board. It's not just separated out by school and, you go on and you're 4 years in high school and you just did your X number of years in elementary and middle. Switch it up. I mean, that's a huge, huge step. I know there's also been a lot of talk about, our needs with busing and so forth. And that's something that's a town decision. And I also just want to make sure that we have that, continue to be high on that curve with the 21st century learning. I mean, 20 years into the 21st century, and we are still relying on some curriculum that dates back to the beginning of this century. So I'd like to keep ahead of the pace. I've always loved it when I volunteered in the schools on Fridays, because we had technology come in 2000 in the district. And every Friday I'd make sure to bring classes down to use the computer lab. Now, yeah, things have evolved. We got the Chromebooks, we could have iPads, we've got various devices, but still having that learning curve about it's just so important. You could say a child's at home and they're on their computer and they're learning it that way, but there is just so much that they can be exposed to and learn and be gratified with what they're learning and take it into their adult life.
Okay. Would you participate in the candidates forum if we hosted one?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Final question of this conversation. Is there any item that we didn't take time to talk about, but you want to take a moment to discuss?
Let's see. So I hate to pause. I hate to have my own pause. I know if I was a radio voice right now at Whitman Hanson Radio Club back in the day when I was in school, I would just hope that, in seeing and talking with folks, and whether you get to talk with them or not, that they're open to ideas and suggestions and creativity, and knowing that we're always going to need to have people's input and guidance and helping us. I mean, yeah, we're making huge decisions. Did you ask about that or not? No, maybe not, but I figured this is just integrating what we do every time in the town with what we do every time in the schools is just so huge. We'll represent as best as we can. I always put my foot forward. Tonight's meeting, same thing. I'm ready, I'm prepared. And I think that's the important part. We just want to be very open collectively with the communities, and it's so huge.
Steve, we want to thank you very much for joining us for this conversation, at least helping folks to better understand who you are as a candidate for reelection.
Well, thank you.
You
Thank you,
got,
Kevin, for having me.
you got it. And we want to thank you for tuning in to this special edition of Municipal Focus Candidates 2020. Give you a little bit of an insight to the candidates who will be, well, you can either mail in your ballot or depending on what's going to happen in regards to the upcoming vote in June, we want to help you be better informed. Thank you very much for tuning in.